On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Valeria. And Valeria was married to a critical, selfish narcissist. It's a story of pedestals, double standards, being good enough, minimization, depression, infidelity, and being set up to fail. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today we have Valeria. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, thank you, Valeria, for being here with us today. And if you want to be a guest like Valeria is today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com and click the guest form button at the top of the page. There you can read all of our instructions, and please read them all and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. And there is no content warning for today's survivor's story. And today you're going to hear Valeria's story. And Valeria gave her life to support her husband, take care of the kids, take care of the home. And once Valeria started to blossom in her career, she began to see that her ex really never saw her as an equal. And that is a really tough thing to come to terms with. So a big thank you to Valeria for being here. And now I'm going to get out of my way and your way. Valeria, the floor is now yours.
So I was raised in a loving family in Brazil. My parents celebrated this year their 50th wedding anniversary. And I always thought that marriage was for life. I'm the youngest of three girls, and then comes my brother after me. And we always were very much focused on education and getting good grades to do whatever we wanted later. And I always did very well in school. I did have some self-esteem issues when I was a child. But when I grew to my teenager years, then I had no problems with that. I've always done everything that I wanted to do. So I went for a year abroad in America, and I went for a year abroad in Germany. So because these are the things that I wanted to do, and I really wanted to meet people, and I wanted to see the world. So when I was done with my studies, I wanted to do a PhD. So I applied for a scholarship in Germany of a very prestigious institution, and I got accepted. Life looked very bright and with a lot of possibilities. So I was very happy. And back then I was 30. So I was just turning 30. My relationships until this point, I didn't have that many boyfriends, but for me, it was very clear that I had a relationship with the person, but if I noticed that I wanted to do something different than that, I would, I never changed myself for anyone. So I had this boyfriend that I was really in love with in my early 20s, but I really wanted to go to Germany. It was something that was really speaking to me, and I felt that I really wanted to do it before I graduated. So we ended up breaking up. And even though I loved him so much, but for me, this experience of seeing the world and meeting people was so important. It was so part of me that I just could not do it. So again, there were relationships that were good, but there was always something that I never conformed to anyone in this sense. So this how our relationships were.
So then you're in Germany doing your PhD. So what happens from here?
Right. So when I arrived in Germany, I was 29, and I was starting my PhD. One of the first times that I had a presentation, a guest lecture, this was my husband. ex-husband. He was invited to give a lecture on his topic, and he researched about friendships and also personality. So, and then when he gave the presentation, I was in the watching, listening to the presentation together with everybody else, and I was also noticing that I was making a lot of eye contact with me. So after the presentation, we went to a smaller room, me and also the other PhD students, and we sat at a table, and it was an oval table. So I sat at the middle of the table. And what he did, he came, sat next to me. So, and I saw that he was looking at me, making like some eye contact. I could feel his eyes like on my face, and I was blushing. I was very nervous. And when the presentation finished and the discussion finished, and I was about to leave, he immediately stopped me and said, "So, where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Brazil." And I said, "Oh, I'm from Holland." And then he started talking to me. It's like, "Oh, where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, I live in that city." It's like, "Oh, I live very close by to your city. Next time you come to my city, maybe you can grab a cup of coffee together." And I was so overwhelmed by everything that I just laughed. And he knew my first name, which actually is not even my first name. The name that I'm called by is my second name. So, and then with that information, with the name of the institution that I was doing my PhD in, and my name, he Googled me and he found me. So he started sending me emails, and I was very much impressed because he found me. So he must be interested in me. And I was like, wow, such a good looking guy, smart researcher, rising star in the field. And I thought, he wants to be with me. Wow, that's great. I felt completely, flattered by it.
So this is your first meeting with this person, and already you have him on a pedestal, and
Yes.
you see him as this like star in this field, and that's impressive to you, and he has taken interest in you.
Yes.
And you earlier said that you were someone that didn't conform to what someone else wanted when it came to relationship, that I was going to go do what I was going to do, and that's how I was. So in this situation, you already have this person on a pedestal, but what you don't know is that he likes being on a pedestal.
Yes.
And that he likes being adored. And your story is one where, you do conform to this person's life. You do something that you hadn't done before because of who he is.
Yes.
And then you eventually do find out what this person really is like when you stop putting them on a pedestal and when you start to live your own life. And the story people are about to hear is that this is someone who does get jealous and that he never saw you as an equal. So as you start rising and start to kind of want some of your needs met, you start to see that you're not an equal, never have been, and he's always seen you as a second-class citizen. So, with that being said, as like a primer for everyone of the story we're about to hear, because for a long time they're going to hear that not that much was maybe wrong. It's, because you were conforming. So with all of this, how did your relationship progress from this point after the first meeting?
Right. So after he Googled me and found me, we were exchanging emails for a few weeks when we finally agreed to go on a date. And I remember I was super nervous because, again, you have to understand that I was education was always something important for me. I always knew that I wanted to do a PhD and be a researcher and teach at the university. That was something that I've always known. And this guy, super young, a professor, and a good researcher, good looking, was like, he was, let's say, everything that I wanted to be, or I thought I wanted to be. And he was super, and he was interested in me. And I was like, oh, wow. So this is nice. Again, in that moment, I also saw my contribution to him, because yes, he's a person that probably he's looking for somebody to share the things with him together. And I am South American, so I'm more emotions, and he is Dutch, so he's a little bit colder. So I could see the added value that I would have in his life, or he's in my life. So it was something that it seemed to fit. It seemed to be. It was not like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that he's looking at me, that he's interested in me. It was more like, oh wow, I'm so lucky that I've met him, because it's a matter of luck. And now I met him, and now we're good. And I bought into this idea that we were meant to be, that we're complementary, that we needed to be together, that he was my husband. So, and after our first date, it was very intense, everything. We saw each other, we texted each other, we saw each other very often. I heard from him multiple times a day, and we were seeing each other every weekend. So I would either go to his city or he would come to mine. It was in the beginning very intense. And there were a couple of moments in the beginning of our relationship that didn't feel good. It was something that, because he would text me a lot and I would see him a lot. And then he would basically disappear for a few days because he worked so hard. He always tells everyone he has a hyper focus. So he can focus on something and forget the world. And that's how also he did with me. So I was very, I think, insecurely attached to him. I was not really, on one hand, I knew that he was my guy, so I could be very sure about that. But on the other hand, this cold and warm that he would do with me, cold and hot that he would do with me, would throw me off. And I would start like thinking, oh my gosh, maybe he lost interest, or maybe, that I became an insecure person that I've never been. I've never been insecure in any kind of relationships I had. So one of the red flags that showed up was when we were like 2 or 3 months together. He was invited to speak in a German TV show. And I'm like, oh, great. And he asked me, oh, you're going to watch it? I'm like, sure, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it together with my flatmates. And while we were watching him, he was speaking, and he was speaking in German. I speak German, I used to speak German fluently, but, it is like kind of jargon vocabulary. And I was also talking to my flatmate, so I didn't understand everything, but also I was every now and then I was joking with my flatmates. And then when he finished the program, he came over, and then he said, so did you watch it? I'm like, yes. What do you think about the time when I say this and that? And I was like, I'm sorry, I think I missed that part. And he was so upset. Like, how can you miss that? What we're doing that you didn't see this, didn't hear that? I was like, I'm so sorry. We were in the kitchen and we're all watching this, but eventually somebody said something and I laughed and I could not understand everything. And he was so upset. And I felt in that moment a little bit like, really? But on the other hand, I was like, wow, so maybe I was very insensitive. Maybe I should not have talked to my flatmates. Maybe I should just listen to him the entire time. So that was one. Another red flag was a few months later, because there was the World Soccer Cup, and Brazil was playing against the Netherlands. And I remember he's not a big soccer fan at all. And eventually the Netherlands lost. And he was just so angry. He left the cafe, like really hitting signs on the street and stomping his foot on the ground as if he was like, I'm so angry. And I was thinking, I don't think he likes football that much. And that was so disproportional, everything. But in that moment, I was like, oh no, it's just a game. Don't worry about it. Next time you might have better luck. And the more I try to comfort him and calm him down, the more he'll be like, yeah, you don't understand. And he would get into that role. And I was, it's very off. Now that I have kids, I realize that he was behaving like a toddler. But I didn't have kids back then. So I could not know. So, so this was like some of the red flags that happened already in the beginning of our relationship.
So early on here, you have rose-colored glasses on, and not that these things are massive red flags in the sense of like, okay, this relationship is ending, because a lot of times, things have to become a big pattern for you to say like, okay, this is something weird is going on. But very early on here, you're giving two instances where there really isn't a lot of emotional regulation, and things are being blown out of proportion in comparison to what has actually transpired. One, you were on the receiving end when it comes to you not picking up what he said on the television show. And then the other one is he is now watching a football/soccer match, and for a team, his country, that he's really not even into this type of sport at all, and he's still having a bit of a emotional dysregulation meltdown a little bit here, where here's early on just a sign that emotional regulation for him is difficult in these instances, or he can go from, happy to unhappy very quickly over something that's very small. So from that point on, you continue this relationship, and what happens from here?
Yes. And interesting enough that even though I had this meltdowns, now I see it, he would always tell me that I was the emotionally unstable person, because I am South American. I cry a lot, and I have no problems with crying, because I cry when I'm happy, I cry when I'm sad. That's how I communicate. And he would always say that, oh, you're so not stable because you cry all the time. And he would sell himself as being a person very stable and very in control of everything. So that's the image that he already started making right in the beginning of our relationship. But in the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, this is so cute that you're so emotional. That's so nice. And eventually became like, oh, you're so emotional. It became like a bad thing. So then after we got married, he was offered a job in the Netherlands, his home country. And but that's the funny thing. He wanted to stay in Berlin, in the university that he was working. And but they didn't offer him a job. There was some kind of problem bridging the retirement of one professor with hiring him full time. So it was something going on there. And there was this university in the Netherlands, a small university here, that offered him a job. But he didn't want to take it because he thought the university was too provincial. It was too small. It was not like a place that people wanted to be. And I remember telling him, listen, if you want to have kids, we are too far away from my family. We might as well just move closer to yours, right? And it's like, yeah, okay. So he took the job. And we were making plans of how it would be. He would take this job. We would have kids eventually. He would also help me to find a postdoc position or another academic position as soon as I finished my PhD. So we were making all these plans with the new house, the new life. It was all very exciting. So, but as soon as we arrived in the Netherlands, he started working a lot. He would work 12 hours a day. I would have no contact with anyone else because I didn't know anyone. I knew only his family. And so I would spend a lot of time with them. But apart from his family, I would have very little interaction with any other human being for so many hours. And so I decided that I would call the university that he had his job, and I would ask them if I could have a guest room so I could work on my PhD there, right? Because that would be also another way to meet people. So I said, okay, that's what I have to do. That's what I decided to do. And so that's what I did. But in that moment already, I was thinking, that's not what I signed up for. This is not what we talked about. We talked about starting a life together, being there for each other, and he helping me to integrate. And he didn't do this, but he also was expecting me to immediately adjust and without any help. Which that moment he would say, but you're so good socially, you always make friends, it's going to be easy for you. So I didn't dare to say, you know what, it's actually kind of hard. So I was kind of, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe I should do this, right? But he's the personality researcher, right? And he knows that I'm extrovert. So he must know that I should be able to do that. So I got this guest room at the university in a different department where he worked, different school. And there I started making my own friends. And I had a group of friends that slowly we got closer, and it was nice. But there was this colleague of him that she came together with him from Germany to the Netherlands. She got a position that was attached to his position. And he gave me the task of being friends with her and help her to adapt to the new situation. In the beginning, I was like, of course, I will help you. I'm going to do that. You don't have to ask me twice to help somebody. I'm like, sure, I can do that. But I was struggling myself. So I remember I had the cell phone, and back then, the calls across countries, they were not regulated. So I would always pay an international call because my phone was from Germany if I would call somebody in the Netherlands. So, and I remember telling him, could you please help me to get a phone because I don't even know where to start. And it's like, oh, you can Google it, you can figure this out. At the same time, he organized the cell phone for his colleague. And I was like, okay, fine. So, and I remember one day we were walking to the train station, and he turned to her and he said, do you want me to carry your purse? Is this too heavy? When I was just next to her with a big, heavy purse, right? So he started accusing me of being jealous of her. And I was not jealous of her. What he was doing to make her feel home, went to his own wife, he took for granted. He assumed that I would just tag along and do and be around him. So that made me very sad, disappointed, and I wanted to leave. So this was already in the early stages of our marriage. So our first year in the Netherlands, it was late summer. So we were married for 1.5 years. And I said, I'm going to Germany. I'm going back to my old place. I'm not staying in this relationship. I'm not happy. So I was about to leave. And then I found out that I was pregnant with our first child. And he wanted so badly to have kids. That was something that he told me like very early on. But when I was pregnant, he was super happy. And I again became his focus. That's why back then I was like, okay, now maybe everything's going to be fine. It became a little bit better. He was still working a lot, but then he would be calling me to see how what I was doing because of the baby. And so everything went okay, I guess.
So within the first 1.5 years of being married, moving to his home country, you thought you were going as a team, but he's just been working all day. You feel like you've been taken for granted in many ways. It's sounding like it's his movie. You're just a character in it. and you have a baby, and his attention is back on you for a bit. However, there are still issues because, as I've stated, it's his movie where he is the star of this movie. So there are power dynamics at play. So tell us more about this.
There was still this power dynamics in between us, because I remember I was busy writing the articles that would be my PhD thesis. And sometimes I would send the articles that would be rejected immediately. And I would just be very sad because you put so much work in this thing. And somebody said, no, we're not publishing it. And he would say, I think you're just not cut out for it because you're too sensitive. You shouldn't cry. I never cry if I get something rejected. I never had this problem. I don't think academia is something for you because you suffer too much. And I start thinking, I'm saying, okay, there's this guy who says that's emotionally very stable and is a rising star in his field, publishing a lot, getting all sorts of recognition, and he's successful. And me, I'm doing my PhD. I'm trying to get my first papers published. I'm not succeeding into that. I'm emotional. Maybe he's right. Maybe there's no place in academia for me. So in the end, I could publish these papers. I defended my PhD with a 3-month-old baby. And already when my first daughter was born, it was a very lonely times for me because he would still work a lot, but now he would ask for pictures from her, would call every now and then. But I was home alone with her the entire time. I was taking care of a baby. I was doing my PhD from 10 in the evening until 4 a.m. because that was the time she would sleep. I was cleaning the house, cooking, and washing his clothes. And I was overwhelmed. I was super tired because he always also wanted me to act normal. Like, you're not going to let a baby dictate your life. So I still had to watch movies with him, even though I was exhausted from breastfeeding. And I said, I have to wake up again in 2 hours to feed this baby. But he was angry, upset, or disappointed if I would sleep in the middle of a movie. And because, we're not doing anything together anymore. And just like, I was just so tired.
So you aren't just an actor in his movie. You're doing everything for him, and you need to be at his beck and call at the same time when he wants his time or needs of companionship. And eventually he wants to go on a sailing trip with a buddy of his. And you don't think it is a good idea, but he goes anyway. And while he's away, you get very sick due to an allergic reaction, and you need to get to the hospital, and then you need to rest. And you still had to do all of this while taking care of your child. So what happens when he gets back?
So when he came back, I told him everything what happened. He's like, I'm so sorry. I cannot believe that I did this. What unconsiderate of me. I'm like, great. He learned his lesson, right? No, next year he took the same sailing trip. So it was always this apologetically, I'm a horrible person, blah, 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 but we'll do the same thing again and again and again. So when my first daughter was around 9 months, I found a job on my own because he said he would help me and asked the university to help me, but he didn't. So I went my own. I applied for different jobs. I got this job in Amsterdam. And for him, it was like, you deal with daycare. If you want to work, you have to make sure that your child is that our child is in the daycare. And then I was working 30 hours a week, raising my child alone because he would be 12 hours gone. And when he would come home, he would continue working. And I was cleaning the house, cooking, and washing. And I did this until I got, and he wanted to have a second child. And he said, you're not getting any younger. So you should stop taking the pill immediately. And I said, but I'm not ready yet. I'm exhausted. And he said, oh, come on. You have to do it. It's going to take so long. If you stop now, it's going to take a year or so until the new baby arrives. It's going to be a big age gap between the two of them. And eventually I said, all right. I stopped taking the pill. And I got pregnant immediately. And I remember, I love my girls, but I remember my first reaction was crying. My mom was visiting me. And I said, how am I supposed to do this? I can barely take care of one. How am I going to do this with you? And my mom said, you will be fine. Don't worry about it. You can make it. And I did. I did. And when my second daughter was around 1.5 years, everything was so much. I had so much criticism at work, but also at home. I felt so much. I didn't have any validation. Nothing, like everything I did was not good enough. My work and at home. So the days that I would arrive home, I would be taking care of the kids. I would put them like for a few minutes to watch a movie so I could cook dinner. He would get in and he would say, why do you let the children watch so much TV? Why don't you play with them? Or why don't you sing songs? And I said, but I've been doing this the entire day. I just need to cook. I need some break. It's like, yes, there's another research coming out saying that screen time is pretty bad for kids. So you should not let them watch so much. And I was thinking, please, I want to breathe. And, but that I would also feel extremely guilty. And then I was like, I'm going to try to reduce the TV. If you're saying that's good, because you must know if a new study came up, right? And then I would try to get better and use less TV for the kids. And again, our kids don't watch a lot of TV at all. It was just at the end of the day, half an hour so that I could cook. So, and it was also not only the kids and TV, but it was also like, he criticized that I didn't use enough spices when I cooked, that if I would cook, I would put so much more spicy and so many more fresh herbs. Why don't you use fresh herbs? So it's always like never good enough what I did. And so in that period, I had a lot of criticism at my work and at home. And I had a burnout. And when I called him, he said, you have a burnout. How is that possible if you don't work that hard? I was like, I don't know, because in my mind, he worked hard, 12 hours a day. And that was hard working. So I was like, I don't know, maybe they just got it wrong. Like, no, they said you had a burnout, you have a burnout. How long do you think until you're better? I was like, I don't know. So he would be checking in the whole time. Are you better? And what are you going to do with your life? I think maybe you should switch careers. And he started implementing this idea that I was not cut out for science, that I had no place in academia, his world. And I believe that. So when my postdoc job ended, I decided to take some time off to reevaluate my life, my career, my choices. I was completely disoriented because academia was my plan A, and B, and C, and D. So I really wanted to teach at university and do the research and everything that's involved around it.
So all of this is going on and you're doing everything. And yes, this person works 12 hours a day, but you are also working. Plus, you're doing the second job of raising your kids, taking care of everything. And you're doing his cleaning, his washing. You're doing everything for him. All they are doing is being critical of you. And then there's a burnout. And with the burnout, you want someone who's going to say like, hey, how can I support you? Or, what else, what kind of slack can I pick up here within this household, within our marriage agreement of what you originally thought you were getting into? And that's not coming. Instead, there's pressure that is coming. So with that pressure, my assumption is it's making everything here worse for you. And yes, it's not just not helping, it's creating possibly here anxiety or things like that never existed before, and starts maybe to become a self-fulfilling prophecy, or maybe that's not the best word, but a spiral of, you already have this overwhelm, and now the pressure by them creates this spiral, I'm going to assume, of, okay, like they're not helping, but now I'm being blamed, kind of.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And not only that, but also a little bit like, see, I told you that you're not cut out for academia. You had a burnout. You cannot survive in this environment. You need a place without competition. And which is true. I'm not a person that competes, and I don't do well when people are competing around me, but it doesn't mean that academia has to be competition the entire time. But anyway, so this was very, for me, was very disorienting. And especially it put me the pressure of figuring out what I want to do with my life once it has been already decided that academia was not good for me, right? So, and then you have to do something with people. So I said, all right. So I started a new master's degree to become a high school teacher. And he also wanted to have a third child. And so did I, because we both come from a big family. He's the oldest of 4. I am the third of 4. So after, when my burnout was slightly better and I was starting education, and so I thought it would be a good idea to get pregnant then, because he was kind of like, either you have it right now or you don't have it, because you're getting too old. I was 36. And I said, all right. So, and we tried to get pregnant a couple of months. And eventually he said, I hope you're not pregnant this month, because if you're pregnant this month, it means that the baby's going to arrive together with my big conference, and I will not be able to go to this big conference. And guess what? I was pregnant that month. So he was also upset that he could not go to his conference. That would be a year that he would miss. And I felt really almost apologetically. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, as if it's insane. It's insane. Anyways, my child was born this summer, and she was a very difficult child. She was super tiny, and she didn't grow as much. It was like the hottest summer in the Netherlands, and she wanted to be on me the entire time. And because until that point, I was taking care of the girls and the house and my studies alone. When my third came, he would have to help me for the first time, because it was a lot. And I remember he would stay behind his computer working while the other 2 were like running all over the place and just doing whatever they wanted, because I was breastfeeding my baby upstairs. And he would scream from behind his computer, where are you? What is taking you so long? You let me alone with the kids. And I would get so stressed, because the breastfeeding, I wanted to have some silence, so some quiet, to make sure my baby drank enough. And but I would always be disrupted by him complaining that he was alone with the kids and how dare I to take so long to breastfeed. And when my baby was 2 weeks old, he decided that he went to the final round of a grant application, a big grant application, and he said, I need to work. This period, he was gone, and I was home with 3 kids and with a crying baby. I had very foggy memories from that period of time, and sometimes when I see the pictures of my baby, or me from that time, I just doesn't feel like I was there. I was just exhausted. I was super stressed because my baby wouldn't grow as much as the other ones. Now I know her, and I know that she does what she wants when she wants. So even that was kind of her statement. But she was not the pattern of the kids that we had so far. So she was very different. And I was worrying to death about her growing and weight and everything else. And I was just struggling. And one day he called me and he said, you're depressed. You have to go to the doctors. And he had the car because he used the car to work. We had one car. And so I put my baby in a sling. I took my 2 children, one in each hand. I walked to the doctors and I said, please help me. I think I'm depressed. And yeah. He's always saying, how did I need to leave this marriage? And so I did have, actually I had some kind of baby blues with my oldest daughter, a little bit stronger with my second, but with the third daughter, I got a full-blown postnatal depression. And I started treatment. He would later tell me that I was mentally unstable because I had the depression. He would use this when he wanted to discredit whatever I was feeling or worrying about. So I finished the education that I started, and it was a 2-year program. So I finished 1 year, and then I had to start the second half of it. And but I was at home with the kids. My second just started at school, so I was bringing all the kids in school in the morning. So it was a very tough period because I was getting them ready for school, breastfeeding my baby, giving them breakfast, bringing them to school, coming back home, cleaning the house, study for my studies as well, and doing everything else. And one day I just exploded and I said, that's not what I ordered. I need help. You don't do anything, because he would wake up at 6:30 in the morning, had his morning ritual of his coffee, his music, and go to work at 7. And I would wake up at 6 o'clock and I would not sit down until I brought all the kids to school. And I said, I need help, especially because he doesn't have a time to arrive. We at university, we are flexible. If you don't have to teach, we can arrive whenever we want. We can even work from home. So, but that was something that was not a possibility for him because that's his routine. So with a lot of, he rolled his eyes, beginning, oh my God, what can I do, blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, I'm going to make their lunchbox ready. For somebody who had nothing, making the lunchbox would save me 5 minutes. So I took it, and he did this a couple of times, and then he stopped. And I went back doing everything alone. And I would remind him of doing that. He would do it. But at the end, I was just so tired of reminding him. Then I said, you know what? I do it myself. And I went back doing everything alone. So when I finished this master's, before I continue study, I said, let me wait a bit. I want to slow down there was always this financial pressure somehow that we never had money and he earns enough, that I always felt very guilty for not bringing any income to the house. And then I said, maybe I can find a job, something very low maintenance, something that doesn't require much from me, so I can see if I can go outside the house, meet people, do something nicer, except for being a mom, and bring some income to home can also be a positive thing. Let me see if I can do this. So there was an opening position at his small university for a lecturer position. And a colleague of his asked him, like, listen, we're looking for people to teach academic skills. Maybe your wife can help us. And so I applied for the job. I got the job. And I was like, great, I'm teaching again. I love teaching. I had a great connection with the students. I was happy about it. And I remember I said, I so wish this job would be forever. And it's like, no, it's just temporary. They will never hire people forever for this job. I'm like, okay. And then I start applying for other things, thinking about, I like working. I'm happier working. So I want to get other jobs. And eventually, in a different faculty of that, in a different school from that university, an old friend of mine, the one that I made friends when I got the guest room years ago, she said, listen, we are looking for a lecturer to teach this course. That's exactly your expertise. Don't you want to do that? I'm like, sure. I prepared this course and I was so happy teaching. I was really feeling this is my thing. And then Corona hit. But even that, I know that was a horrible period, but for me, it was a great experience with teaching, because I was very honest to my students and said, listen, we don't know what we're doing, but the most important is that we stay communicating with each other. So I'll be here by teaching you live, because I get less motivated if I have to record a video and I don't know who is going to watch it. So please be here because I need faces. And that created a very good connection with the students, and the course went very well. At the end, the head of the department, she told me, listen, the students are really happy with you. And many of them said you're a great teacher. They're really excited about it. And did you handle very well the whole Corona uncertainty? So we would like to keep you. And I said, oh, that's great. And then I told my husband, I said, listen, they want to keep me. And it's like, I don't believe that, because we would never, in my department, he was the head of the department. In my department, I would never hire a person with so few publications like you. And I was like, yeah, well, okay. Maybe he's right. He said, don't keep your hopes high. I'm like, okay. And then I continued doing my work, my job, and eventually that was the end of my contract, my temporary contract. And they had to decide whether they would give me a permanent one or I would lose the job. And then my boss said, we want to keep you. And the only things that you have to go back, you have to do some research. I'm like, okay, it's fine. And then I signed my permanent contract and I told him, and he said, never thought about it. Well, I guess they're kind of changing the rules now. Now they're accepting people with less publications. Oh, well, good. I was like, okay. So I was still feeling like a completely outsider, not deserving of the position, as if they were doing me a favor for hiring me.
So right here, with battling depression because he's not helping you, raising 3 kids on your own, he's used kernels of truth about academia for you and, in a way, setting you up to fail. You're not feeling like you're good enough. You know, here's this job that you get positive feedback from, things are going well, but he can't help but put you down in your qualifications to get it. And when you do get it full time, he uses the same put down, but in a different kind of way. You know, that I guess people don't expect much from their professors anymore. And this is you gaining some power here. You did it. and you've done all of this without his help. And now this is when things start to change. So walk us through what happens next.
And that was the beginning of the end, I think, because eventually around 2020, he decided that the small university was too small for him. He eventually will be the most cited researcher in that university, and that was not good enough. So he wanted to be among big names. And so he just wanted to go to a better university. He applied for a job in his current university in the middle of the Netherlands. And eventually, by the end of 2021, I guess, he got the job. And I remember he was so happy. It was around the same time that I got my permanent contract. He's got this job, then I got my permanent contract. And he said, I'm so happy now. I want to support you in any ways you need. I want to do for you whatever it takes for you to be happy. And I thought, oh, that's so kind. That's so nice. Yes. Because I knew that what I was doing was a lot. But I thought, a marriage is for life. Maybe the first 10, 12 years, I'll be doing most of it. But now he's going to step in. It's so naive, but I really thought that he's going to step in. So maybe that's the chance. He cannot go any further because he already is on top of his career in the best university possible around here, one of the top 100 universities of the world. So now it's time for me, I thought. And then I started working, and I was just so happy at my work. I love my colleagues, and I love the students. And sometimes I would come home and I would say, I cannot believe people are paying me to do this. It's like I would go to work like always like happy and whistling, and I was having fun. And people there thought it was very helpful, and they were like really I was collaborating to improve the department. So I was working as a team, and that's for me. It's the environment that I flourish the most, if I feel that I'm a team with a person. And the more I told him about how great I'm doing my work, I'm so happy about this, the more he would hold back, and eventually he stopped talking about his own work, because it was always about his work. He would share everything with me. And eventually when I start coming with things from my work or problems that I had, he would be very dismissive of them. He would say, this is so like child's game in comparison to what I have to do in my work. And I was like, and I remember telling him, listen, what if I would work in a supermarket, I would also have problems with people. I would also have problems in my work. I would still like to discuss about it. So why would you hear that? It's like, yes, I would. Why don't you hear the problems that I have it now? It's like, yeah, because all these problems that you're telling me, I already had them. I have much bigger ones. So I know your problems. And I was like, okay. So I start filtering a lot and not sharing many of the great things or the bad things that I experienced during my day. We were just talking about the kids. And eventually he started distancing more and more from me. So he starts saying, I'm thinking now our life is so boring because we live in a village. I need to go out more. I need to see more culture, more art, more many things. And I said, listen, I don't find my life boring. Actually, I love my life. But sure, if you want, go ahead. You do what you need to do. It's like, yeah, why do we have to live in the village? Why can we just not move to the city? And I said, okay, it took me so many years to find friends here. Now the kids are well in school. They're thriving. I have my friends. I have my work around very close by. If you tell me that you're really going to be happy if we move to a city, sure, let's do it. But if you're going to, after a few months or years, you're going to say, nah, I want to move again, I'd rather not. Because I have an entire network that took me 10 years to build. And then I said, oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, we're staying here because of you. And he was always very resentful, saying, yeah, we're staying here because of you. You make the big decision. You are so dominant. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then he said that he wanted to go out more, and he started going out more. He went to like a ridiculous amount of events, festivals in 2023. Too many. Every weekend, every other weekend, he was just gone. And but eventually he told me, I don't want to go. I'm going to those places with my friends. I don't want to go with my friends. I want to go with you. But you're always tired. I don't want to have a tired wife. And I said, I don't know. Why do you think I'm tired? It's like, I don't know. Because I do everything alone. I take care of the kids alone, the house alone, cooking, and my job. And I have to deal with the fact that you are not happy. And it's like, well, if this is the case, let's see. So he created an Excel table, and he put there all the hours that he thought he invested in the family and in the kids and not in himself. So he put there like many hours to do the taxes, many hours to like take the trash out, those kinds of things. And he came up with some, and also he did the hours that I was busy with the kids. And you'd be like, okay, what time do you get up? I said 6. No, it's not possible. You don't get up at 6. I'm like, I get up at 6, but I start dealing with the house and with the kids. And that's why you don't see me. Yeah, right. So what time do you have breakfast? I'm like, I don't sit down to have breakfast. I eat my breakfast while I make the kids breakfast and make their lunch. Like, no, that's not possible. So I'm going to put 30 minutes for breakfast. I was like, what is this? And he said, you take at least 15 minutes to get ready to work. I'm like, sure, put 15 minutes. And then he came up with these numbers that he had. He would spend 950 hours, I suppose to be a year or a month. I don't even remember, for things that were not related to himself, only for the kids, for the benefit of the kids, mine, in the house. And I would be 950 and he would spend 750. So he said, well, if I cook dinner once during the week, and if I take the kids once to school, we're even. Again, for somebody who had no help, this is a lot. So I'm like, sure, I'm taking it. Many times he forgot to take the kids to school, and he would call me like desperate, like, where are the kids? I'm like, they're in school. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was such in a good flow this morning, my routine, that I forgot the kids. And I'm like, yeah, of course I was there. And he stopped cooking as well. And then I said, listen, you said you want to go out with me, not your friends. So please, let's do something together. Why don't we do this and this and that? It's like, no, I don't like that. So, okay, so pick something you would like to do with me. That was the other thing. He said, I always decide everything. You never decide anything. So, okay, so let me decide something. I would pick something like, nah, that's not good. So it was very frustrating. So we went out for a concert. And I'm not so much of a music person. I'm more a dance person. So I went there to the concert. I started dancing. I had fun. I was like among seeing people. So I was like, this is all good for me. And he started complaining, saying, you don't like the music. You're here for the dance. We're not in the same vibe. That's not really good. And I was like, what? And then I made some kind of joke. And he said, you and your friends joke, because the TV series Friends, I love it. And he thinks it's like very lowbrow. He thinks that it's not funny. And I made some kind of joke, and it's like, you and your friends humor. I was like, yeah. And I would feel actually ashamed of not being funny. And I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry if I'm not refined enough for your taste. And I really was trying to adapt. I was trying to fit. That's insane. I was trying to amuse him, please him, make him laugh, make him happy. And so I suggested to him to do therapy. couples therapy. And he said, it's not going to work. And he said, you know what? I need some me time. I need to be alone. I have to take care of myself. That's what he said. I said, you do what you have to do. And he said, I'm going to hang out with a friend. I would sleep at his place because I want to drink and I don't want to take the car and the train stop around midnight. So I would sleep at his place. I'm like, fine. And he promised my oldest daughter to take her to ice skating on Sunday. That was a Saturday evening. But then when the time came to take my daughter to the ice skating, he didn't show up.
So right here, he doesn't show up like promised. One of your daughters is at his parents' at a sleepover. So when you go to get her, the mom knows something is wrong. You tell her everything. Your husband gets upset. But then he goes on a business trip for a week and then comes home. So what happens once he gets home?
And the first thing he asked before I asked, how are you doing? How are the girls? He said, next week, I want to take care of the girls alone without you. You had them for the last week. Now it's my turn. And I was like, it's not that I wanted to have them for an entire week. You disappeared. It's like, yeah, but now I want to have them the entire week. I can do that. He's never done anything like this before, because even the 1 week that I went to a conference, I left everything prepared and everything organized with a schedule. So he just had to, I even put my friends in contact with him to help him out. So even that I did. So I said, okay, fine. I was so afraid of losing him because I was feeling that he was escaping, he's slipping away. And I was like, I'm going to lose him. So I just have to let him be. Just like I felt that it was just like holding sand. The more you try to close your hands, the more it just goes through your fingers. So you just have to relax. And that's what I thought. So, and that week was horrible because he was shutting me out. So he would say, you were allowed to eat with us. It's fine. But after dinner, I want you to go upstairs because if you are around, the girls don't want to do anything with me because they're going to be all over you. And then I said, do you understand why they are all over me? It's because I've been taking care of them for the entire time, their entire lives. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want you around. So I would actually have to leave the dinner table and come upstairs. I don't know what I was feeling. I was just so hurt, so tired, and didn't have any energy to push back. I was just lost.
So you're at this loss point of how you're feeling. You still love him, but he's now not including you, and it hurts. And now Christmas is going to be coming, and you want to spend it with your brother in a nearby country. But due to passport reasons with one of your kids, it gets canceled, and your ex blames you. You end up going to his parents, but he makes his own plan to spend it with a friend. So what happens from here?
He took his mom's car to go to this friend. And on December 25th, he called the girls. He sent me a message and said, I want to talk to the girls. So I immediately gave them the phone. He was very angry at me. He didn't want to talk to me. And he talked to the girls, hung up, and I still didn't know where he was, what he was doing. I saw no movement in our bank account because we have a shared account only back then. And I thought, this is all very suspicious. And on the 27th of December, I called him. And when he saw it was me, because he thought it was the girls, he was very angry. He's like, what are you calling me here for? This is so awkward. And I'm like, where are you? Like, I'm in the city of my university. I'm like, where? He said, in the house of a colleague. I'm like, okay, where'd you spend Christmas? Well, I spent Christmas in the house of a colleague in Belgium. I'm like, alone? It's like, yes, alone. I said, listen, it's very awkward that you call me now. And then he hung up. And then as I sent him a message that said, listen, there's no situation in this world that is awkward for me to call you. I'm still your wife. We still have 3 kids together, and we have a house together. So after New Year's, whenever we meet again, you come back with a parental plan, a housing plan, and with some respect, because I'm done. And he sent me a couple of emails saying that he was really sorry for the way he treated me, but he felt controlled when I called him, all sorts of kind of excuses. And when he came back on January 2nd, we had a 6-hour-long conversation. He said that he cannot change the past, but he wants to do therapy to be a better partner for me and a better father for the girls, that he missed 11 years of being a father, but he wants to build a relationship with them. And many times I start realizing that he was manipulating not only me, but also the therapist. And many times the therapist, I ask him, do you have somebody else? And he said, no, I don't have anybody else. It's about us. And then to the therapist said, listen, if any one of you has somebody else, I have to know, because the approach is going to be completely different. And I said, no, I don't have anyone. He said, no, I don't have anyone. Continue saying this over and over and over. But something was really like coming back. I'm like, this is not possible. Nobody spends Christmas alone. That doesn't add up. So for the first time, I think in my life, I actually could fool somebody. So I was talking to him and said, I know that you have somebody else. The question is, and I know that somebody from your work. The question is only how long you've been together. And then he said, how do you know? And I said, because nobody spends Christmas together. You spent Christmas with her, right? And it's like, I don't remember. I'm like, what do you mean I don't remember? It's like, yes, I did. I said, that's why it was awkward for me to call you, because you were in her house. And I said, do you understand how messed up is this? You took the car of your mom to go to your girlfriend while your wife and kids were completely distraught. And then he looked at me. And then I said, are you still together with her? He said, yes. So out of my house right now. And he started laughing at me and started saying, I said, if you don't leave her, and I'm going to call the police. And he started laughing at me. He's like, yeah, good luck with that. Nobody's going to believe you. I own this house. And I'm like, yes, you do. You own this house. But you're not living here anymore. And I'm the only one living here. And if I tell the police that you do not want to leave the house that I'm living in, I'm very sure they're going to escort you out. And that's when he left. And from that moment onwards, I have the impression that he's like a Tasmanian devil that creates destruction over and over and over. And I just have to clean up his mess. I decided that he wanted to tell the girls that he fell in love with somebody else, and I was upset. And I said, no, if you want to say that, you're going to say that you fell in love with somebody else. You started having a relationship with this person while you're still together with me. You were treating me very poorly. You were denying that you were having this relationship. And eventually I found out. And now I don't trust you anymore. That's why we are going to separate. He said, no, I don't want to tell this. I'm like, okay. So let's bury the girls. So I told them that we were happier separate than together. And I answered all their questions. At the end, he left and he came later to pick up some stuff. And he said, thank you for being so great about this with the girls. And I said, are you kidding me? They are my girls. They are kids. They need protection. They need an adult to tell them everything will be all right. And I am this adult. And he said, I always thought you were weaker than me because you cry a lot. But I see that you're not. And I said, you don't understand. I came from the middle of nowhere. I made my life in 2 different countries and I end up in the same place as you. So I'm not weaker than you. I'm stronger than you, much more stronger than you. And I'm never going to let you say that I'm weaker again. And he said, yeah, you're right. You had nothing here and you built a life for yourself. And now you're better off than me. You were happier in the previous years. You became a happier person, you blossomed. I didn't. And then he left. And since then, it's been a nightmare with, I don't dare talking to him in person because he spins his words around. He gaslights me. So I'm just communicating with him via WhatsApp, because then I can send him the print screen of things that he says that he didn't say. And I'm exhausted because I'm thinking, my life is always going to be like this, that he makes this mess and I clean later because we have kids.
And now you're going through a divorce process. How has that been?
God, this is so horrible. Because he underestimated me. We were doing a mediation session, and before the mediation session, I found a lawyer for myself. And he explained me how the mediation process is in the Netherlands. Because don't forget, I'm divorced and not in my country. So nothing is a given. I have no idea. So he instructed me, and I was super prepared. And I took, for the first time, that was a big mistake that I made, that I let him take care of the finances. And I said, okay, that's how much money we have. And he would always say, we don't have money, you're spending too much on the kids. And I checked everything. And surprisingly enough, I found out that while he would tell me that I should try not to spend more than €5 to eat for my lunch at work. I tried, but I could not make it lower than 7 because, I'm hungry. So I need food. So I found out that I was spending average €7 and he was spending 15. He was having 120 euros of dinner during the week while I was eating home. So he was complaining that I spent $350 in glasses for our daughter, and he would go to festivals that the entrance was €450, right? And he went to 12. So it is so double standard. It's not even only for myself, also for the kids. And I did all the calculations, and I found out that I, together with the kids, spent less than what he spent on himself. And I was believing that I was the money drainage in our marriage. And so I was very prepared for the mediation session, and he was not. And he was so thrown off. He again underestimated me. So when he saw that I knew all the numbers and I said everything I said, he was just looking at me like, where is this coming from? So we had our 3rd session now. And now he's starting to act out because we have some assets. And when we get the money, this is a big thing. And he's being very controlling about this. So he won't stay in this house. And he's just stalling the whole time. I do feel that I'm mourning the death of a person that actually never existed, because I'm trying to reconcile the image that I had in my head of him with what he really is. It's just so crazy because I see him doing all the love bombing again with his new girlfriend. And like, after when I said, okay, it's in the open, he's together with her, 2 weeks later, he introduced her to our kids and to her kids. And he didn't prepare the girls at all. So I came home, my youngest was crying and saying, I don't want to have another mama. I'm like, you will never have another mama. And my oldest daughter was like, that was really weird, because he didn't want to tell us her name, because he was afraid you would call her. I was like, why would I call her? Like, that makes no sense. So a few weeks after that, after he introducing his girlfriend and her kids to my kids, he introduced my kids to her entire family. And I'm so proud of my girls, because At the end, they came back from this weekend with her family and told him that they thought was too early. And I'm just so proud of them that they could speak up their minds.
And if you had any words of wisdom for everyone listening, what would they be?
If you've been in a relationship like this, it's not your fault. It's nothing that you've done. You were just unlucky enough to shine enough to attract their attention, but you were too good for them to stick around or to be nice to you. So I think it's not, I'm reading the book, it's not you. And I keep repeating this to myself, it's not you. Because I still feel as if I failed, as if I should have done something different to keep him, even though cognitively I know that he's horrible and I'm much better off without him. But there's still this emotion, this an addiction. I still want that he wants me, and I know that doesn't make any sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and you're grieving the person that you thought they were, and you're grieving the loss of a relationship, even if it was a terrible relationship. And this person went from the love bombing stage to really only thinking about themselves and thinking about their work and thinking about their standing in the world and all of these achievements and how they would be seen by others and how they'll feel about themselves. And they left all of the work, the housework, the children to you, and your job was not as important, and all of this other work was not important. They were just doing what they wanted to do, and you were expected to pick up the slack, and you were put down during this time period as well. And they didn't really think much of you. They thought the initial thing of like, oh, this person is like a shining person, but it was more of a very surface level kind of thinking. They didn't think there was much really below that you're, besides being this person's just a good person. They weren't believing in your intelligence in the same way of their intelligence. And as they started to change, they wanted you to change with them. And, they weren't adapting to you or the kids, but then when they wanted to adapt, they expected you to adapt. And you were getting your own life, and that was a problem. And them seeing you start to do those things, you supported this person for so long, and they couldn't support you at all in the same way. And they took digs at you and, were telling you that you were depressed, and why would someone like you be depressed? They couldn't see anything because they're so self-involved and entitled to what they want at that moment. And now here you are at the end where, this person's trying to transform into whatever they are, and they're still only thinking about themselves. They're not seeing you. They see you in the sense of, oh, I might have underestimated you on what you're doing, but at the same time they don't care about that. They're acknowledging it, but they're still living this double life for a very long time. And yes, they might say my needs now aren't getting met. That could be the truth. Their needs might not be getting met. Their needs and all these things might not be getting met within the relationship anymore, but they have never considered your needs and have never given you an opportunity to be yourself and to be supported in what you were doing, what the kids were doing. And they just tried to tear that apart the whole time. And when things didn't suit them anymore, they were gone and they wanted out. And it just shows this entitlement, and it just shows this behavior that they only thought about themselves, and they still only think about themselves. And they even though in some ways they are changing, oh, maybe I shouldn't have worked the way I worked for so long. They're still doing what they want to do. It'll just show up in a different form now than maybe what it was before for the person who's coming next here. So I just wanted to point all that out, that this person has been selfish. This person has been entitled. This person has only been thinking about themselves their whole entire time that you have been in a relationship with them. And even though, the truth could be that their needs aren't being met, they have never considered yours once. And feel good that you're gone and that you're going to have a great life from here on out. And your children are going to have someone who they can trust, and you're a good person. You've done nothing wrong, and everyone today is giving you a big, big hug.
Thank you. Thank you.
So those are our last words.
Brother, this is better than therapy. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Valeria, for being here once again. And if you want to be a guest like Valeria was today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Click on the guest form button at the top of the page. There you can read all of our instructions. And please read them all and either send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@gmail.com or fill out our guest form and press the submit button. And please do send it in the format that we ask for. Also at our website, we have a support group. So if you need support, we have a support group by clicking the support group button at the top of narcissistapocalypse.com. Inside, you'll see that we have Zoom meetings every Wednesday night and Thursday afternoons. We have forum boards for you to post on to get the validation that you need from survivors just like you. It is a wonderful group of people on there, and you can make a lot of friends too. So if you need support, join our support group today. And if you need even more support, please do visit our friends at domesticshelters.org. At domesticshelters.org, they have articles and resources to help you make sense of everything that you're dealing with. And they have every phone number, email address, web address for shelters and agencies, no matter how big or small the town you're in. Domesticshelters.org has it there. So if you need extra support, please do go to domesticshelters.org. And we have other friends of the show called Shelter Movers, and Shelter Movers can be found at sheltermovers.com. And what they do is they help you move all of your stuff from your home and into storage, and that can be your pets and livestock too. So if you're trying to get out of domestic violence and coercive control and you need help leaving the home, getting all of your stuff out of your home, sheltermovers.com can help you get all of your stuff into storage, including your pets and livestock too. They are only available in Canada, and they are a donor-supported charitable organization. So if you need help from them or just want to donate to them, go to sheltermovers.com. And that is it for today's survivor story, for today's episode. So for myself and Valeria, we hope you have a good night.